Okay, here's the third and last of our 3 lessons for week 11. And in this lesson, we're going to take the information that we started using in lesson 11b when we first learned how to use the URL lib.request library to read the text of an HTML file from the internet. And we're going to specifically apply it to one particular website, the Google Finance website, that has a very nice applications programming interface that allows us to look up a stock quote and get information from it. And that information is in a very prescribed format so that we can turn it into a dictionary in Python and pull out information that we need from it. So we're going to go through a very detailed example of doing this and see some of the things that could go wrong, and this becomes the basis for your programming assignment for this week. So let's get started on this. There's a website called finance.google.com, and you can go to finance.google.com and look up a bunch of financial information about stocks and bonds and mutual funds and things like that. Through this website, they also support getting stock quotes through an API. So if you use the URL here, http finance.google.com/finance/info Q for quote, equals, and then you put in a stock ticker symbol. Any stock ticker symbol for anything you want to know about that it can find on any of the exchanges. In this case, I've put in GOOG, which is the stock ticker symbol for the Google Corporation. So the URL above returns some information about the stock ticker symbol GOOG. If I put Q equals APPL at the end, I'd get information about the Apple Corporation. If I used Q equals Ford, I'd get information about Ford Motor. If I did Q equals GE, I'd get information about General Electric, and so on. And if you want to know valid stock ticker symbols, you can go to the human site, finance.google.com, without all of this other stuff at the end, and search for some stock ticker symbols. Now, if I just type finance.google.com, finance info Q equals goog in my browser, here I'm using Chrome, I get this gobbledygook, because it's returning something that is not intended for humans to read it directly. It's intended to be parsed by a program. So if I look at this, this is the way my browser, the way Chrome, is trying to put this into a form that's readable. And it's not particularly easy to understand. But this isn't exactly what the HTML looks like. This is what the browser has done to my HTML. On any browser, you can find what the exact HTML is of the page you're looking at. In Chrome, you do a right click and do View Page Source. In other browsers, there's a way for you to click on the settings or do a right click and look at the HTML of the underlying page. You may never need to do that, but if you do, this is the HTML from the previous screen. First line has / open bracket. The next line has a curly brace. The next line has quote ID, quote, and a colon, and quote, and a bunch of digits, and another quote. Then the next line has a comma, and T : Goog, and E : NASDAQ, and L : whatever. This looks really similar to a Python dictionary, doesn't it? This is actually in JSON format, a string version of something that's like a Python dictionary, but with some HTML at the beginning. This / bracket, and the bracket here is HTML. That's not part of the JavaScript object, the Python dictionary for us. So each of these is a key and a value, and you would need to know from Google Finance what each of these keys stand for. Some of them are fairly easy to figure out. Some of them are not as easy to figure out. You can look it all up by looking at the documentation that Google provides for their Google Finance API. The ones we're going to be interested in, T is the ticker symbol. L, cur, is the last, the listing of the current trade. It's the current price. There's several versions of the current price. I'm not a financier. I can't tell you what all the differences are. The time of the last trade in date-time format, in a couple of different formats. The time this was last traded, at the time I took this snapshot, it was on Friday, April 10th at 4:01 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. There's a few other things down here that I have no idea what they mean. I could look it up on the Google Finance API documentation, but I don't know what they mean off the top of my head. Now, here's some code that retrieves that HTML and converts it to a dictionary. I've imported urllib.request, I've imported JSON, and I've defined a function called getStockQuote. So everything that's indented under here, everything on the rest of the page, is the particular stock quote, or excuse me, the particular code for the getStockQuote function. GetStockQuote takes one parameter, you pass it in your ticker symbol. So that will be a string variable. You might be calling it from somewhere else. GetStockQuote. Maybe you're passing it in with the string Goog to get the Google stock quote. Okay. Setting up a string variable for my URL. http finance.google.com, finance info $Q equals, and then I append the ticker symbol that you passed in. I'm going to use that as the input to urllib request.url open. That's going to come back and give me a file-like object that has all of the lines, all those lines we saw on the previous page of this PowerPoint that had all the HTML information coming back. And then I use the readLines function that's defined for file-like objects to turn it into this variable called lines. Remember from our lesson 11b, lines is a list of byte streams. I need to turn it into a list of strings. So I'm going to create a list of strings here. Start it out as an empty list. Go through a loop. For each line in lines, one at a time, I'm going to take list of strings and append that line after I've decoded it and after I've stripped off any new line characters at the end. So my list of strings will have all of the things that you saw on the previous page. Let's go up and just look at the previous page. List of strings. Here's going to be the 0th element of list of strings. Here's going to be the first element. Here's going to be the second element, and so on. List of strings will have one element for each line of this. Then I'm going to take it, instead of having it as a list of strings, I want to get it to be one long string that's all concatenated together. I'm going to call that my merge string, and I'm going to start that off as just the empty blank string. Now, I'll go through my list of strings one element at a time. If the string is not in this tuple that has two things in it, / blank open bracket or close bracket, if it's not one of those, then I'm going to add the string to my merge string. Let's go back to the previous page. It's not going to take this one. It's not going to take that one. All the rest will get merged together. So by the time I'm done with that loop, I'm going to have a string that consists of opening brace, quote, quote, ID, quote, quote, colon, quote, quote, 304, blah, blah, blah. Then I get the comma. Then I get the T, and so on. All of this stuff will get concatenated together into one variable called merge string. So when this loop is done, merge string is a string that looks a lot like a Python dictionary. It's a string version of one. And the JSON library has a load string, a load-s function that takes the merge string and it returns a dictionary. So this return statement says whoever called get stock quote is going to get back a dictionary that has the stock quote for that particular ticker symbol. So let's see what we're going to do with this. Here's code that calls the function from the previous page. So first thing I do, ask the user to enter a ticker symbol. So I use the input statement. We've used that before this year. Enter the ticker symbol, put the value into symbol. Then I'm going to say quote equals get stock quote. That's the function that we just showed on the previous page, passing in the symbol. So quote is a dictionary. Quote is a dictionary that has a bunch of keys in it. Let's go back 2 pages. What are those keys? It's going to have a key called ID. It's going to have a key called T. It's going to have a key called E. It's going to have a key called L. It's going to have a key called C, and so on. So I'm going to print out a few things. I'm going to print out the ticker symbol is this dictionary, whatever's in the T key area. I'll print out current price, whatever's in the L_CUR key for the dictionary. Last trade, whatever's in the LT key for the dictionary. And then I'm going to print out the full quote, meaning every single key value pair in the dictionary, just so that you can see it. These are the useful ones that I probably want to know about, but I'll print the whole thing out. So how do I do that? We did this before when we learned about dictionaries. For each key in this dictionary called quote, I'm going to print out the key, a colon, and the value associated with that key. Notice I'm putting some blanks at the beginning of it, so all of these are going to get indented. Let's see what it looks like when we run it. Here, I'm running the code. It asks me enter the ticker symbol. I type in GOOG, and it comes back. Remember, I had 3 print statements before I printed the entire thing. It says, here's the ticker, GOOG. I didn't type it in uppercase. That's what Google Finance gave back to me. Here's the current price, $540.01. Here's when the last trade happened, April 10th, 4:07 p.m. And here's the full quote. Every key in the dictionary with its value. So this ticker symbol came from right here. This current price came from LCUR. Where is that one? Right here. The last trade came from the LT. That's this one right here. Okay, when I run the code, that's what happens. It asks me for a symbol, looks up that symbol, prints out the information, and then it's done. But, oh, went the wrong way. Here's something that could go wrong. What if I put in a ticker symbol that is not on the google.finance or finance.google site? Python will give me a runtime error. So I enter the ticker symbol XXXXX, and all of a sudden I get an entire page of red error messages, ending with urllib.error.http error. And what is that? Well, this is a sort of useless error message. Bad request. What it means is, when I put that URL together that ended with Q equals XXXXX, the website was not found. You've typed in websites that weren't found in your browser, and your browser comes back with an error saying website not found or something like that. Well, here's what happens if you do it in Python. you get this error, url_live.error.http error that's raised. Sure would be nice if we were able to handle that error with a try and accept statement. So, what are you going to do on this week's programming assignment? All of the code that we just went through, that we looked at step by step in this video, you get as your starting point. So you've got all of that. You are going to put in exception handling so that if you enter a ticker symbol that isn't found, you get a nice message and a chance to try again instead of seeing a page of red error message gibberish. If you type in XXXXXXX, I want it to say XXXXX not found. Try again. I want you to modify the program so that instead of quitting after it does one ticker symbol, keeps looping through. Maybe you want to find the value of 6 different stocks. Loops through until you decide you're done. How are you going to show it you're done? When you type in a ticker symbol, QUIT. And I also want it not just to print out the values, but to keep track of the current price of all the ticker symbols. And after you're done with the last one, after you type quit, print out the ticker symbol and the current price of whichever one had the highest price. So maybe you're going to ask for Google and Apple and Ford Motor and General Electric and John Deere Tractor Company and whatever else you want. And maybe it decides that Google was the highest price at the end, and it'll say, of all the stocks you looked at, the highest price was Google at $540.01. So, I've done your assignment. You don't get this code. You only get the starting code. I've done the assignment that handles the errors, that goes through a loop, lets you quit, and prints out the last one. So here's an example of running it. Enter the ticker symbol. Enter quit when you're finished. I type in GOOG. It gives me this information, just like you saw from the starter code. Then it does enter ticker symbol, enter quit when you're finished again. This time I'm typing in something that it won't find, XXXXX. Notice no red error messages because I've handled it. It says ticker symbol XXXXX is invalid. Try again. Then goes up here, enter the ticker symbol, enter quit when you're finished. This time I'm looking for GE. It says, oh yeah, I've got a GE. Here's its price, and it gives me all of this information about GE. So notice I've done Google and the price was $540. I've done GE, the price was $28.51. Enter a ticker symbol, enter quit when you're finished. This time I enter quit, and it says, oh, of all the symbols you entered, Google has the highest price at $540.01. So enjoy this assignment. With the starting code there, you can concentrate just on the things you need to change. Exception handling, make it a loop, look for the word quit, and save your information about prices through the loop so you can print out the highest one at the end. Happy programming.